Hi everyone, it's Editing George here. Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to say that for reasons that I've not been able to work out, something went a bit weird with my recording on this podcast, so it sounds a bit like I'm speaking to you from the bathroom with a pair of socks stuffed in my mouth. One of my friends who knows about this sort of thing has done their best to clean the recording up a bit, but it's still not perfect. So I just wanted to apologise for that in advance. And I've left a few little editing treats in this episode just to prove that I do kind of know what I'm doing, sort of. Anyway, let's get on with it. Bye. Hello and welcome to the GunsOnPegs podcast. My name is George Brown and I'm the editor at GunsOnPegs. I'm joined as usual by Chris Horn, Managing Director of GunsOnPegs. Chris, by the time this goes out, the season will be a dimly fading memory. How are you feeling about the season we've just had now that you've had a bit of time to reflect on it?
Well, we've had a few days to reflect on it and it's already a dimly fading memory. Getting itchy feet. Don't you find that you just need a few things in the diary, like not too far ahead to look forward to? That's what keeps you on your toes. But in terms of this season, God, it was a weird one for me. I mean, God, thinking right back. So I had a really, really good start. September, October, quite busy. Baby, 2 months out.
Yeah.
Really busy January. So, I mean, as seasons go, to be honest, it's got to be the best for that reason alone. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite looking forward to a comparatively quiet February. I'm quite enjoying not having too much on and not being charging off around the country. Not that it wasn't great, but yeah, I'm sure that by the time March rolls around, I'll be itching to get out and do something. And there's still lots of pigeons about, so they need sorting out.
I just got invited to roost shooting tomorrow night, and I had to turn it down because of prior commitment, which is really quite frustrating. But then he was like, "Don't worry, you can come next Saturday." I was like, "Oh, amazing." But I reckon that our guest is going to enjoy a quiet February more than you are, or need it more than you are, at least.
Probably. Why don't you tell us who's with us today then?
So indeed, yeah. So our guest is a sort of all-rounder in the shooting world. He's a game farmer, a shoot manager, and he's got a shoot supplies business as well. So he's from Gloucestershire. He's a real character. His business, actually, the shoot supplies business, is called Bruin Game Supplies. He runs 2 estates at the moment, Hitchens Farm and Withington Estate. And you might have also seen him on a really emotional BBC Three documentary, Me, My Brother and Our Bulls, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And given especially that our listener base is fairly male dominant, but a massive warm welcome to Ben Hughes.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Oh, it's good to have you with us.
For the listeners, we did go down to see Ben. He very kindly invited us to go and shoot with him. So we got down there, had a nice supper, got all set up to record, and the equipment failed. So we ended up just having a very nice evening before a day's shooting. It was great.
A nice boozy evening. I enjoyed it.
Very
brilliant. we turned up at yours, Ben, with some steaks, chips, some sauces, a few variations of drink, and then just chucked it all to you and said, "Cook that, will you?"
Yeah, bearing in mind, gentlemen, that the kitchen is not my forte, and I'm not actually allowed in there very often. So actually being allowed to cook was quite a pleasure. Yeah, what more could I have asked for? Some great steaks, some great company before a really nice shoot day.
You did a sterling job in the kitchen as well.
You reckon? I think actually I did. I think I nailed the steaks. To be fair. You know, that was pretty good.
Well, you've also set the bar very high in terms of guest invitations. Inviting us on a shoot day.
I'm tempted to say we shouldn't have anyone on who doesn't invite us shooting.
Well, do you want to let them know, let the listeners know, George, about Toby's little email to you and I after the last episode?
I don't want to put him on the spot because I don't, but. Since he's made the offer, he's suggested we might like to go and join him fishing in Iceland at some point. And I mean, I'd swim there if I had to.
Yeah, jet ski.
I'm actually looking forward to my invite, which I'm definitely taking George upon for chasing the pheasant after you missed all of them off my quarry cliff.
Well, they're a long way up. No, you must definitely come here and chase our pheasant next year.
If he's still there.
We'll find another one from somewhere.
Good.
Right. Ben, what's that you're drinking?
Okay. I'm going to show you because we are live on Zoom as well. So I've actually got today, the first time round, let me just say, I was drinking something called Badger Cider, which was made very locally, a stone's throw from my farm here in the Cotswolds. It was made at Hales Fruit Farm by a good friend of mine, Joe Harrell. So I was drinking that. But today I'm on an O'Donnell Wild Berry Moonshine, which I'm pretty sure you are meant to mix with something because it's 25% volume, 50% proof, comes in a 700 millimeter jar, just like the Americans used to obviously do their own, sell it in their little jars, and it's really tasty on its own.
So is it grain alcohol, like proper moonshine, but then, sort of slow ginified, or is it?
Moonshine liqueur made from a blend of raspberries, grapes, and summer fruits. Moonshine was illegally alcohol produced during the American. Yeah, I mean,
does it taste good?
Oh, it's mega. I got so drunk at the game fair on it because that's where I found it. At the game fair,
Really?
ended up in your tent out dancing everyone. So, I mean, yeah, it's great. It's great. Actually, Paul Childley was my dance partner for the night. Hero on the dance floor.
I wish I remember more about that party.
Oh, I mean, I know I left there with one trouser leg intact and the other one was, torn to shreds. But hey, when you're busting out moves like I do, obviously my legs just wanted to get out of those trousers. So we were busting moves in all kinds of ways.
Oh dear. Well, look, we're going to be doing that party again this summer, I think.
Are we?
We're certainly angling for it at the moment.
Fantastic news.
Yeah, I've got to have a conversation with the game fair about where and how, and we'll come back to it. George, what are you drinking?
So I've got to go and pick the kids up after this, so I can't. I've got to drive, so I can't have my usual 3 glasses of whiskey and be safe. So I've just got a small bottle of a locally brewed ale. It's from Red Cap Brewery, who are maybe 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now. It's a golden ale, and it's really, really nice. Really nice, and I'm just going to take it slowly with this one today.
So proper dedication to the pod would have been for you to just have your usual whiskey and then have a taxi waiting to take you to pick the kids up and bring you back.
Put the car seats in it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Chris, what have you got?
So I just got something I found in this local shop that sells all sorts of drinks, and I think it's fairly mainstream stuff because it's by Thatcher's, and it was a cider. And I looked at it was quite sunny today, and I was thinking, it feels like it's been weirdly warm recently. I thought maybe I'll do a cider. Anyway, it's called Green Goblin. It's actually quite nice, medium dry cider. Just fancied a cider. I haven't had one in a long time, so yeah, there you go.
Nice
Friday afternoon drink. Thought it would go well.
Good work. It snowed here this morning, so
yeah. I'm in Kent. It's like the Gobi Desert down here.
Absolutely, yeah, up on the top. Well, considering we are literally a stone's throw as well from one of the highest points in the Cotswolds, yeah, it snowed.
Wow,
it's quite nice.
Very good. So, George, your favourite part of the pod? What have you got?
Yeah, so this is Ben. Whose bird is it anyway? It's the section of the podcast where we ask our listeners to write in with their shooting quandaries and queries and dilemmas and that kind of stuff. And we do our best to offer them some sort of advice. Whether that advice turns out to be useful or not remains to be seen. This one comes from somebody I'm going to call Spike. And Spike writes, I'm writing this on a very exciting day, as I've just moved back from home to England after 8 years of living in America. I've enjoyed listening to every one of your podcasts from my workshop up in the Blue Ridge Mountains just outside the Washington, D.C. area. Your podcast has had a massive impact on me. It made me feel so homesick for the English countryside that I changed all my plans this year and decided to move my whole family back home to Cambridge.
No way.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Ridiculous.
I feel slightly, I'd have stayed where I was, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes on, wanting to be home with my mates back out in the fields and woods with a good gun and even better banter was a big factor in me wanting to come home. And it was driven by listening to you guys, so thank you. Now, I have a quite literal whose bird is it anyway? When I was a young lad and just getting into shooting, I was at a rather splendid shoot near Cambridge doing some beating. I was really trying to learn all the ins and outs, as I was the first in my family to discover field sports. At the end of the day, I'd helped sort out all the birds. On this particular day, there was a rather magnificent brace of pheasants shot, a brace of reeves. While I was sorting through the regular birds, one of the guns came over, picked up the special brace, and asked if I could give them to the gun who shot them. Knowing no better, I said absolutely and walked the birds over to one of the other guns, who laughed heartily when I tried to give them to him. He claimed they were not his and sent me to another gun, who also found the notion of receiving these special birds very funny and sent me to yet another gun. Eventually, someone did take them, and I went off and found the keepers and asked what was so funny about it all, and find out whose birds they were anyway. Well, the keeper didn't find it funny at all, and I got a bit of a tongue lashing, and was told that only the keeper gives birds to the guns, and what I'd done was totally out of order. 17-year-old me was heartbroken over making such a big mistake. I found out the next week that there was a rather hefty fine connected to those birds. The guns were playing tricks on each other over who'd shot them and who would then pay the fine. The keeper was mad about it for weeks, and I tried to avoid the guns for a little while after that. So the advice I'm hoping you gents can give is some best practices for beaters new to the game, so they don't get in trouble with the guns or the keepers like I did. Also, was I wrong to have listened to the guns in the first place? What should I have done differently?
It doesn't sound like you could have won, does it?
No.
It's a proper whose bird is it anyway? Whose bird is this that I'm holding? It's the first one we've had. So, Ben, this is, you're
you're going to throw this on to me, aren't you?
You're the one that runs some shoots around here. You must be giving advice to beaters all day long.
I don't feel like I've ever seen that happen. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen white birds hidden in jackets. I've seen white birds planted behind friends. I've never seen a beater asked to go and present it unless it was asked by one of the other guns or the keeper themselves. And I can't say that our keepers would sort of get so hepped up on it as what this particular keeper would have done it. And our guns are normally pretty good at owning up to shooting them, and with me stood maybe 50 to 100 yards behind them, I've normally got a bloody good inkling on who's actually shot the reeves or shot the white pheasant. And our charitable donations, they're all being given to Oddballs, which is a testicular cancer charity, if you don't know, which actually helped me during testicular cancer. So that's where our donations go, and because it is such a good charity, most of our guns are pretty good with giving up the money.
I definitely want to come back to that with the number of white birds on your shoot.
That's fine. But yeah, going back to the question in hand, that is a tricky one.
I mean, for a gun to go up to a beater, the gun didn't know that the beater was going to get in trouble when doing this, but he's really sort of leaning on this beater to try and make his trick play out, isn't he? So I feel a bit sorry for him.
I've not come across that rule that only the keeper gives birds to the guns.
No, I've never heard that either.
It must have been a terribly grand place, and it must have been a while ago.
That or they think it's a tradition. They sort of made it into tradition in their own mind. I mean, it happens by default, doesn't it? Because when you tip the keeper at the end of the day, he asks if you want to brace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's true.
So maybe the keeper was cross because he thought this young guy was angling for a tip.
No, surely not.
Who knows?
I mean, keeper sounds a bit heavy-handed. But what you do? Okay, so I think he's asking for more generic advice. Going back to when he was younger, You're a beater for the first time. What do you do?
Stay away from the birds. Stay away from the birds. I honestly, I wouldn't know. I'm trying to sort of think back to when I was younger. I used to drive the game cart on the next door neighbouring shoot to our shoot here, and you just potter along. And at the end of the day, I used to ask Guns if they would like a brace of birds before I went back to the chiller. So was I doing the wrong thing all those years, asking Guns before I take these back to the chiller, sir? Would you like a brace of birds? And no, thank you, young man, was normally the common thing. And then one gun would, yes, I'll have a few brace, please. And they take what they would off the game cart, and then off I'd trundle back to the chiller to hang all the rest. I never got in trouble.
So I think.
What about if you're going beating though for the first time? I do think there's some sort of cardinal rules though, aren't there?
I mean, absolutely listen to the keeper, right? You can,
Yeah.
If the keeper says something, how high, that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Just listen and do what you're told, and if you don't understand,
and be really good at understanding what a straight line looks like.
we had a beater come 2 years ago for the first time, and he when our head keeper told the line to stop, he stopped but didn't start again, and we didn't see him till the pub afterwards, and we lost him on the second drive. he must have thought something was going on after about an hour of stood there. Like he's standing there for an hour.
Well, I think I'm trying to think back here. So I think what I used to do was I'd go and stand near one of the older members of the beating line who'd been doing it for ages and make sure that I was the sort of next one along walking through the wood to him. And then you kind of just copy his every move and you can't really go wrong. I think I'm fairly certain that's what I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was particularly helpful actually, which was quite nice. And you've got to find the helpful one amongst them.
I think it's also, it's like the rest of shooting. Everybody's friendly and helpful and keen to see new people getting involved. So if you turn up in the morning and go, this is really exciting, it's my first time out beating, someone will take you under their wing and they'll say, you stick with me, lad. You'll be all right. I'll make sure everything goes okay. I think that's probably the best bit of advice, isn't it?
Yeah, but also, I suppose, probably stay out the way of the keeper unless he's really wanting you for something, because some of them can get really stressed on a shoot day, especially when it's not going right. And if you're a young beater asking too many questions,
you get the brunt of the
exactly.
anger.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think do what I remember doing, which is go and find an older beater who's been there and done that. Stay clear of the keeper. Don't offer guns, birds out of turn. Basically, just don't speak out of turn at all. We're making it sound quite scary. It's not at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's scary at all. I think, just, ask questions when it seems to be an appropriate moment to ask questions. If you can see someone's gone purple in the face, don't ask them a question at that moment. And, there's always going to be someone around who's willing to help you to learn and be pleased to help you to learn, I think.
Yeah. And don't walk up to the gun at the end of the drive and ask why you missed that whatever bird you saw.
I did that a few times to you guys. Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm expecting it.
A more appropriate question for me this season would have been, how come you hit that one? Because it's been such a rare occurrence.
We had a message after the podcast shooting day saying that this was a media front that George was a shit shot.
So Ben can confirm that I'm dreadful.
I wouldn't say dreadful at all.
You shot really well on the second drive at Ben's.
Yeah, no, I had a very nice time.
You did well. You did well.
Right, Chris, you got an unpopular opinion for us?
We do. This one comes from someone that George has named Alfie. And he writes, shooting seasons for reared birds are stupid. The seasons were designed to protect wild broods, which is surely a moot point on an estate where 99% of the birds are reared and released. We should do away with the seasons for pheasants and redlegs everywhere, except those where a preponderance of wild birds can be demonstrated. Oh, dear.
I swear you've just picked the hardest possible things for me to get involved in today.
I mean, that's a tough one, Ben.
That's yeah.
Do you want to bring out your scientific knowledge now?
Let me put it like this: would you be happy if the season was still running right now?
God, I'm going to add to the unpopular opinion. I think, personally, with the milder sort of weather in which we're having at this moment in time, if you had the weather we had this morning, would have been more like the weather you would expect in sort of November, December time.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, it wouldn't hurt for the seasons to be pushed back a month, because we seem to have harsher weather in February and March than we do in November, December now. However, I think I'm just fueling the fire here a little bit more for everyone who's going to be shouting it down at the radios or at their computer screens listening to this, saying, "What does this kid know? He knows nothing." But I have never ever seen a partridge pair up in February, and it's it, it's not the weather. But then you see the cockbirds, like I'm looking out my living room window now, and there's two cockbirds which are showing their colours to each other, and you think, okay, well, that's probably just from having such a mild winter that they're getting all the wrong signals anyway. And to be fair, my goldens, my ornamental pheasants, which are in the barn, have started laying eggs already now, because it's obviously warm enough in there, and obviously we have left the lights on by accident a few nights on the trot, and so they think the days have drawn out, so they've started laying a little bit. But it's just odd, the weather that we're having at the moment. But I do think that the seasons, they could be altered, but I might be speaking out of turn.
Well, no, you're not the only one that's. Do you remember during lockdown when we sort of lost months at a time? There were so many questions about extending the seasons for a bunch of reasons. I think the predominant call was basically because of the number of birds that would be left on the ground and the impact that would have, having not shot them. So that we were fielding tons of questions about why can't we shoot in February this year, or should we be asking Parliament for that? Before I get onto that, George, what do you reckon?
I think that our correspondent has probably missed the point slightly, which is, yes, the seasons are there to protect wild game bird broods and look after wild game birds, but it's also about the disturbance in general for all of those nesting birds, right? There's more to it than just the game bird side of it. I think that, all those birds that are going to start nesting over the next few months, I think they need as little disturbance as possible. And if you've got beaters and dogs crashing through a wood, it's probably not terribly good for them either.
No, you're absolutely right. This is not just about game birds. See, I mean, yes, the immediate thought, seasons are there for game birds because they pair up, but there's a lot of other things happening at the same time. I think the biggest issue here is that this point is actually not worth discussing. And that was my response to everyone during 2021 January, whenever it was, or the 2020 season. So the Game Act is primary legislation, which basically means if you want to have it adjusted, it has to be passed by Parliament, which means that we would have to have Parliament voting on whether we should extend the red-leg partridge season, the pheasant season. I couldn't think of anything worse for them to be discussing right now, because it's going to bring into question a whole load of other things. Right, before we talk about extending the season, can we talk about what you're doing in the first place? Would be basically where that would end up, wouldn't it? So I think for anyone thinking about calling for adjustments in seasons, they've been around since, go on, someone give me the year,
18 something.
68, is it? Game Act. I'm Googling it. 1831. There you go. Right. So they've been around a long time and they haven't changed yet. Obviously, the climate is adjusting, but we don't really want to be talking about this, so we probably should leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's unlikely to get parliamentary time, I think.
Well, it's not going to at all, is it? It's going to be laughed out or taken on in a different way. So, it's an unpopular opinion. There are quite a lot of people with that opinion, though, but I'm glad we've addressed it, because the point is, I don't think a lot of people who had that opinion during the lockdown year realised that it just wasn't worth going after.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Alfie.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it. Okay, so Chris, finally we've got Shooting Heroes. It's our new feature. Like we said before, we've had huge numbers of these in, so we've got plenty of them to get through. But Chris, will you read this episode's Shooting Hero nomination out, please?
Absolutely. So this one comes from Jamie of the Coombe Farm Shoot, who writes, I heard about your shooting unsung heroes, and we definitely have someone worthy of the prize. We're a small DIY shoot where we take a bag of 15 to 25 birds, and all the work is split evenly between the various syndicate members. That is to say, split evenly between everyone as long as Tom is included. Tom is the unlucky sod who lives closest to the shoot and has a wonderful Land Rover Defender pickup, which, for one reason or another, has become the primary work party vehicle, feeding vehicle, gun bus, beaters wagon, and general party bus. So when Tom joined our shoot, there were a number of other vehicles suitable for carrying people and heading out into the fields without being rescued by a tow rope. As the syndicate members have changed and the world has moved on in terms of the cost of running these vehicles, more people have been led to family cars with the notorious 7-year warranties. Tom's is now the primary shoot vehicle with occasional support from guests. Anyone who has owned a Defender will know it's not just the extortionate annual tax on the vehicle, nor the scary rises in fuel that is the main cost that keeps it on the road. Instead, it seems to be the cost of constant maintenance and replacement parts required that helps define the character and charm of these iconic vehicles. Although they're an absolute workhorse in the field, it takes a lot to keep them going. And I think this would be a great nod to Tom and his Land Rover to let him know how much the rest of the shoot appreciates his support as one of the linchpins keeping our syndicate going. That's why we put this feature in, isn't it, George? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Yeah, really nice.
Absolutely. Tom can have a pair of garters. He deserves them, clearly.
Well done, Tom.
Yeah.
Class act.
And if he's sensible, he'll get rid of that Defender as quickly as possible. Get a Polo or something, so somebody else has to do all the work.
Sounds like he sort of needs a long pair of steel garters just to tie them around other cars and drag them out the whole time. Ben, I was just going to say, is there anyone on your shoot you want to give a shout out now? You've got an opportunity. Anyone who deserves a bit of praise for being kind of a bit like Tom?
Do you know, I have a beater, actually, who started beating for me when I was sort of 19, 20. So shout out to Bob, because Bob has now been beating for me. We worked it out, something like, well, if you include little days, he would have done way over 1,000 days almost,
Wow.
in about 15 years for me. So he's absolutely nailed it.
Amazing.
So big shout out to Bob. And then my old man, I suppose. My old man's a bit of my rock. He's been my rock through COVID, telling me to keep going with what I'm doing. You know, we've got 5 full-time employees, you know, relying on the shoots. So it's quite something. And Dad, bless him, had a bloody knee replacement halfway through October, and was back out doing an end of line job up hedgerows and on stop, only 5 weeks after his knee op. So yeah, big shout out to the old man as well.
Oh, good
Amazing.
lad.
Yeah, genuinely heroic.
Yeah, I like the idea of 1,000-day club.
That's quite cool. Yeah, that's quite a cool thing.
Good.
Right, so Spike and Alfie and Jamie and Tom and now you, Ben, are members of the most noble Order of the Garters and will shortly be in receipt of a set of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters. If you have got a shooting confession, quandary or query that you'd like us and our guests to help you with, or if you've got an unpopular opinion or a shooting hero who you'd like to share with us, drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com.
Right, Ben, we need to talk about the shoot. I mean, obviously, we've mentioned already that you're a top guest. You're in the top 3, that's for sure, for inviting us shooting, both of us as well. So we must thank you very much for that. But before we talk about it, tell us a little bit about the shoots that you run and what you've got going on there.
So we've got 2 shoots here in the Cotswolds. We're actually looking to take on another one potentially this year, which is quite exciting. And basically, yeah, we do a mixture really of mixed days and pheasant days on Withington Estate mainly. They're mixed days back here at home, and as you guys know, we give a good family feel to our days, as opposed to sort of, you're not on a conveyor belt, so to speak, which some teams might feel like they are when they go on to a shoot which does more than sort of 10, 15 days a year. We still hold that family feel, and that's a massive thing for us. So mum, bless her. Yeah, she should be one of my unsung heroes as well, I suppose, because bless her, she did 81 shoot days worth of food this year.
Wow.
And
God.
she hit the ripe old age of 70 as well this time. So she's doing really well, bless her. And yeah, so we just keep pushing on each year. We're actually going to downsize the number of days on both estates this year. It got quite grueling towards the end of the season, because we had quite a lot of days which we had to carry through from COVID. And so that meant a lot of pressure on the ground, a lot of pressure on the boys, and a lot of pressure on myself and the family as a whole. So we are going to downsize the amount of days, but just upscale a little bit on the amount of birds shot per day, which isn't by a lot, sort of 25 head, or between 25 and 50 head each day. But it just means getting rid of sort of the 150 bird days. Unfortunately, with all the price increases this time, they're almost not becoming viable again. And I saw that sort of going back 5 years ago when we used to do 100 bird days. They became unviable, and nobody really wants to pay £5 extra per bird on a 150 bird day, to make it sort of viable for the estate to do it. So unfortunately, we are sort of going through our customers from last year, and just at the moment sort of getting them on board with next season, and seeing if they would like to carry on and go slightly bigger on their days.
It's going to be tough, isn't it?
You've touched on a really interesting point there, though, which is I think probably there's a lot of people out there who don't really know about how it is that you arrive at the cost per bird. Now you run the whole operation with the game farm right the way through to the end product.
Yep, correct.
So what are the things that are driving this increase in costs over the coming 12 months?
Okay, so for example, a 47 kg bottle of gas last year was £48. This year we're looking at £56, £57. So close to sort of, an £8 increase there. And an £8 increase on a bottle of gas means it's almost, I think I worked it out the other day, about 7.5% increase in gas. We're looking at food prices going up as well, by similar. And when you look at everything going up by a very, very similar margin of 7.5%, well, that 7.5% has to go on top of your shot game price. So we've actually we're increasing by between 5 and 7.5% on most of our game days this year. And also chick prices have gone up this time. It's a really tricky subject, and every time I speak to one of my sort of customers who have been with us for such a long time, to try and explain to them, I'm really sorry. I know we had a little bit of a price increase last year. This year we're also having a price increase and a minimum bag increase as well, and they almost feel like it's a double whammy this time. But in actual fact, it's very difficult. We've still got our overheads to pay, and nothing's ever getting any cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
47% of shoots make a loss. That's the last time we surveyed it.
Do you know? I think my shoots just about break even, and you're probably thinking now, why the bloody hell are you doing them if they're breaking even? But as my business runs with the game supplies, the rearing and the shooting, they all run as a train track effect. And, somewhere in there, there will be a slight bit of profit, whether that be on the game supplies or the rearing side of things. But I enjoy the shooting side of things just so much that's why I kind of enjoy doing it.
Well, I mean, look, we had an awesome day with you, and you're in such a beautiful part of the world for it. I mean, you've got amazing scenery around you and lovely views, and then a good selection of drives on the shoot. You know, you can sort of please anyone, really, can't you?
That's what we aim to do. So I don't like calling it an industry. I think we're in the hospitality business, is
Yeah.
how I like to put it. Purely because we are putting on an event for a day for a team of guests who would like to come and enjoy their day. And so we are in the hospitality business. And so we give the hospitality feel where they have everything laid on for them, but we can cater for all teams.
That presumably means offering really awesome little 11s like the pheasant goujons that your mum offers with the KFC batter.
Yeah, we can obviously offer everything from however anyone wants to spec out their day. If they want a day which they primarily shoot pheasants or primarily shoot partridge, we could do that. If they want a mixed bag, we can also do that. But also we have everything where I can also take them to drives where they see lots of birds and they can have lots of shots and it really go for it. And then the slightly smaller drives where they pick through what they want to shoot and also there's something in there for everyone. So as the drives roll on, you know, the more experienced shot can really start picking some nice high ones, and the not so competent people can start really finding their way through, getting a few on the floor,
including some white ones.
Yeah, there was one or two white ones when you guys were about.
I was desperate to get one. So let me put the story here. So we mentioned it at the start. There was this BBC Three documentary called "Me, My Brother, and Our Bulls." And if you haven't watched it, well, you'll want to go watch it after this because it's a fascinating story and it's a really important one as well. So there's a lot of white pheasants on the ground because Ben mentioned he went through testicular cancer only 3 years ago now, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, 2019 is when I was diagnosed and had the removal.
So off the back of that, one of the ways of generating some cash for odd bulls is to put down some white pheasants, and you put down quite a few of them. But it's a sort of voluntary fine, isn't it? And it really adds to the day. It makes everyone sort of feel quite good about it. You actually, I felt myself, I was stretching my barrels, thinking, I want one of those. I want to contribute to the charity. And it just makes
actually,
it.
I was standing with Chris, and he's not lying. He was. I want a white pheasant. He was. Where's the white one? Come on, where's the white one? Well, can I get that one? Oh, I probably better not. It's over my neighbour.
That's exactly it. Which a lot of shoots who put a few white ones down, they always have their ways of sort of ordering a fine or what have you. But do you know what? I just asked for a donation, and they don't cost any more to rear than what a normal pheasant does, and we sort of have an overwinter flock here, so I can rear as many as I want or as little as I want. So as it is a charity that is so close to my heart, which helped me when I had testicular cancer, I do make sure we put a nice number of white ones out, which I think between us and the listeners, there was probably about 250 or 300 white ones released this time, and actually they are the ones which you see the most in January, when you guys came, sort of 10 coming out the end of each drive because everyone's picked the stuff around them a little bit.
Cheeky, that's not the spirit of it.
No,
is it?
It's not. But Olivia, bless her, she had a couple on Beta's Day, and Olivia being my other half, she's donated, and so it's all good. And we've done really, really well for Odd Bulls. I'm not entirely sure exactly how much we're on, but it's a good few £1,000s, and bearing in mind that we just asked for donations, we've had some really generous ones.
It's a nice way of doing it, though, rather than sort of imposing £100 fine on someone that really doesn't. You know, they might be a young guest of someone or something, and £100 suddenly is a lot more than it is to the next person.
Exactly.
But you've alluded to this story, Ben. I alluded to it at the start that we've obviously got a very male dominant listener base. What you and your brother have been through is an important message to everyone else. And can you recap a bit of the story for us and the
sure.
message we're trying to get across?
Absolutely. So back in 2018, all those years ago now, my younger brother, he did a live examination with Holly and Phil on national telly. Left very early one morning, woke me up whilst leaving at 4:30. I had a shoot day to run, so I wasn't best pleased. Anyhow, got home from shoot day, flicked the telly on to watch the recording. Mum and Dad religiously, bearing in mind Chris and I were both living at home. Chris was between moving house, and I was actually waiting for my house to be built. So we were both at home. I get home. Mum and Dad religiously record everything Chris did on TV. So I watched it, and they said, "You've got to watch it. It's absolutely amazing, and it will help so many people." So I watched it, and I thought, "Crikey, yeah, that has hit home fairish." And shower, bedtime. Bedtime came. Couldn't sleep because Chris wasn't home. About 1:30, 2:00 in the morning, the door goes, and I hear him creep up the stairs. And I was still awake, so I said to him, "Well done, mate. That was really, really, good what you've done there. You'll help so many people." And something was telling me in the back of my mind, just check yourself. So I copped a little feel that night, and at sort of 2:30, 2:45, I'm then venturing into Chris's room. I'm like, "Is this what we're looking for?" And I found a lump on my testicle, and cut a very long story short, with Mum shouting as well, "What the bloody hell's going down there?" Because Chris is telling me in no uncertain terms to get out of his room. It's 3:00 in the morning, and he wants to sleep. He's been up for nearly 24 hours. So yeah, it all kicked off a little bit in the household, and I got an examination. I took a secondary opinion because I wasn't too sure with the first one. So I went and saw another specialist for a second opinion. And on the 8th of January in 2019, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. And on the 23rd of January, I had the removal. So it was all very quick because they were a little bit worried at the size of my lump. And as it happens, it was benign at the time, so I was extremely lucky there. However, it was the rarest form of testicular cancer, and if it had become active, they're not sure how long they would have given me, whether that had been
Really?
weeks, months, or years.
Gosh.
And so the story developed really from there, didn't it? Because it's become, I mean, twofold. You've kind of had an absolute double whammy. You get dealt with testicular cancer, then the story develops into male fertility,
Yeah.
which is just this thing that no one really talks about until you start to have children. And having been through the sort of this recently with my friends, when you're 18 years old, you think, oh, if I kiss a girl, she might get pregnant. And then, wind it on a few years, and turns out it's not that simple. And actually a lot harder.
Yeah, absolutely. So we didn't actually know that we were going to go down that route with the documentary. It's sort of a route that found us a little bit. So we started filming as soon as I found my lump. Friends of ours and friends and people Chris had worked with caught hold of the story, and so I wanted to raise awareness as best as we could, and we think we've done quite a good job with it already, and we're continuing to try and do a little bit more. So whilst we were going through that, I kind of told my doctors that I feel tired all the time, so then they start testing my testosterone levels, and now I'm injecting twice a week with testosterone, and I take a tablet a day to just boost my testosterone levels up, because when I tested for the sperm count, it wasn't showing anything in my count. So they basically then tested me again, blood tested me. This was before the medication, and my levels of testosterone, I forget exactly how they measure it and what they measure it in, but my testosterone was down to 2.9, which is the equivalent of a 119-year-old man. And
oh my gosh.
So now I'm on the medication. They think it's going to start simulating the testy that I have left. And I'm now running along at something like 24 or 26. And that's as good as what a young, keen 18-year-old, like a young ram lamb. So yeah, I'm ticking along now. So we're now hoping that it's the medication has stimulated my testes to send the right signals from the testicle to the brain and back again to start producing the sperm that I need to have a family.
But so you're a sort of mid-30s fit young lad who
Let me
suddenly
stop you
gets
there.
told.
I've only just turned 30.
Okay, so you're a late 20s, now 30, mid, fit young lad who suddenly gets told he might not be able to have children because you've kind of got your system working like a 119-year-old man. I mean, that must have been like absolutely crushing.
I knew something was up when it was becoming a task to get out of bed in the morning, sort of walk downstairs, have your morning cup of tea, sit in the chair, and actually feel like you were going to fall asleep. So that's how I felt. And now the testosterone and everything, it gives me a bit of go, and I feel a lot better for it. But yeah, when you're told those sort of things, it's a little bit crushing. But when you're actually told, and it's all in the documentary, that there is something that can help, then you just take every chance.
So the point of this, so there's people listening to this now who might be thinking they're really struggling to get out of bed in the morning. They're not feeling quite right. What's your message to them?
Do you know, I'd always say now to every teenager, and I've actually done a few talks in the local school where I used to go to school. I think this was going on in my body a long, long time prior to actually finding the lump. During school, getting it after football, getting in the showers with all the lads, and they've all got their chest hair and everything. I was never. I'm a fair-haired chap anyway, so I was never ever the hairiest one in school. But I'm thinking, Christ, freaking hair on his chest. I've got absolutely nothing. And it was and thinking back, and I'm quite open about it now. Thinking back, I was like, maybe back then I was struggling with testosterone, and that's why I wasn't having the stimulants that I needed to grow my chest hair and all of that. And you sort of, even at that age, I was sort of pushing it to one side a little bit. But actually, come to think of it now, that may have been part of it. So I say to all the lads when I go to the school and speak to the sixth form, just go and get a blood test. Ask
Really?
your doctor to have a blood test to check your testosterone levels. And if the testosterone levels are down, at least they could do something earlier than what I had when I found out that at the age of 26, 27, that my testosterone levels weren't right and the stimulants weren't giving the right signals from my testicle to my brain.
The point you made there, you mentioned sort of pushing it to one side, and I think that's such a bloke thing to do. There's that sort of famous thing about man flu. We make a huge, great fuss when we've got a minor ailment. But actually, the tendency with blokes is if they suspect that there's something quite seriously wrong, they're much less likely to go to the doctor. They're much less likely to do anything or just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Absolutely. And again, it's all in there in the documentary, is to go and get yourself checked. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. The doctors have all seen it before, if not a million times before. And I for one was not worried one bit. I was a little bit scared of the cold jelly that goes down there, because I was worried that my manhood was gonna go to nothing, and getting that out in front of the doctors would have been a bit of something. But no, there is absolutely nothing to worry about, and the best I can say is just go and get yourself checked if there's anything, literally anything. And again, I'm quite active on social media, on my personal account on Instagram. I get asked every day questions, and the amount of people that have come to Chris and I and said how much we've helped, and that they found a lump and it's cancerous, and a couple of them have been stage 3, stage 4, and they wouldn't have known. So just helping people as much as we can is our aim, and to try and save as many lives as possible. And if any of you listeners out there have got a question and you want to ask it in confidence, then please just get in touch, because it will be my pleasure to help.
Oh, you're a good man.
Well, I'll make sure that we link to your Instagram in the description of the podcast as well. And actually, I'm going to give a message to the listeners right now. If you're a bloke and you're listening to this right now, unbutton your trousers, have a little fumble, a little rummage right now. Brief pause.
Start fondling now.
George, just don't do it on Zoom, yeah?
Yeah, George, what are you doing?
You can see my hands.
I can't see Chris's.
Ben, well, look, I mean, at the end of that documentary, which for anyone who didn't hear it, it's called Me, My Brother and Our Bulls on BBC Three. Stick it in BBC iPlayer.
To be fair, BBC Three has now just come live to telly. Just quickly, bit of a shout out, I know, but it's just come live to telly. And if I quickly nip onto my WhatsApp messages, we have got a showing of it back on national telly on Sunday, the 20th of February at 9 p.m. So that's BBC Three, Sunday, the 20th of February at 9 p.m.
Hey there, it's Editing George here. Now, you may have noticed that this episode was released after the 20th of February, but have no fear, I've been and I've checked on the iPlayer, and Ben's documentary is available to stream via the iPlayer for the next year, so do make sure you go and check it out. I'll put a link in the description. It's well worth a watch. Right, back to the podcast.
Yeah, really good. I mean, at the end of the documentary, you'll see it if you watch it. It said, in the UK, male fertility now accounts for 50% of infertility. As many as 2 to 3 million men in the UK could have a fertility problem, which typically only becomes apparent when men want to start a family. And that stat shocked me. And I think that what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. It's so good of you to be able to talk about it publicly. And as you said, if you can make a difference to some of these other people, then hats off to you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing about it. I, suffering with it through myself, through your own personal experiences, and trying to help people if you can. And that's why I tell these young lads, go and get a blood test. And 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to see the testosterone levels from a blood test, and you'll be able to see if anything's not quite right. And at least they have, at the ripe old age of 16, 17, they have enough time to be able to sort of get it checked and maybe possibly do something about it to help their fertility for later on in life.
So back to rosier times, Ben.
Go on.
The way that we love to round off this podcast is with the part called Desert Island Shooting. So you can now dream away. You've got one last shoot day. Money, absolutely no object. Do what on earth you like. Where are you going to go? Who are you going to have with you? What's it going to be?
I would be going over to New Zealand to shoot the pheasants off the top of the mountains over there, because that looks absolutely epic scenery. And I would be taking 2 Chinooks full of my friends who are my close buddies, who we're lucky enough to do a huge amount of shooting with each other every year. So John, Jason, Sam, Charlie, Jonna, all of the boys.
Don't miss one.
I don't think I have. I might have. I don't think I did. But yeah, I'd be taking the boys over there in Chinooks, and it'll be a bit like the scene out of James Bond when we turn up and we're in the Scottish Highlands and the music's blaring out and yeah, we're going to go and shoot some pheasants in New Zealand, I think.
I've seen there's an Instagram account, isn't there, for one of the shoots and out there, and it just looks unreal.
26-1.
That's the ratio.
Lighthouse Station, which is driven shooting in New Zealand. Some teams shoot that at 26-1.
That just sounds demoralising.
For you, it does. For me, it sounds a challenge.
Oh, really? I'd be there. I'd be there in my side by side, shooting the low ones out the edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds to me like they haven't got low ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So, no, it sounds epic fun, and yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list to do anyway. Even if I take the boys, that will be a bonus.
Nice. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's all about being with your mates, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
And once again, someone has brought that into their desert island shooting in a big way. So well done.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much for joining us, Ben. It's been really interesting. It's been really fun.
Good. Thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to my garters coming.
Yeah, they'll be in the post.
Epic pair of sunglasses from you last time. So I think there is a picture of me and Childley actually circulating around Instagram with them on. So your listeners might be able to find them.
Great. Right. So before we go, as per usual, there is one final reminder that you can get hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by getting in touch to let us know where you've been listening, or by sending us your unpopular opinions, or by nominating a shooting hero. Just send us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we read it out in the next episode or any future episode, we will send you some garters. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time with another episode, but until then, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.